dive into the world of flavors and delight. Every drop brings health and fuels our fight. Coffee, the ultimate treat. Podcast takes the lead, where each brew inspires and plants the seed. And now let's explore curiously with our taste buds and ears, with every delightful sip with the host. Coffee, the ultimate treat. Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to Coffee, the Ultimate Treat. We have a special guest, Brian Samson. He has 10 plus years connecting with US companies with Latin America. He's a founder and he has 3 exits. He's a UCLA MBA. He's a family man, and he is host of Nearshore Café podcast. So make sure that you go ahead and have a look at what Brian is doing over there at his podcast. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thank you.
So let's take a little bit of a deep dive with you and give us a little bit of your background and a little bit of a briefing, and we'll go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So I think there's maybe a couple overviews of my career. Started off in the Midwest in Chicago, Illinois, and got into right into the staffing world. So straight away from university, and I was working with the biggest of the big accounts in the States. All the names everybody probably knows worldwide, like Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, IBM, Verizon. And it was a fun way to cut my teeth. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners think back to their first jobs, like their first kind of real jobs. And so the nice thing about working with these massive companies is they were hiring a lot of people. So there was no shortage. And if you ever work in staffing, there's two sides. You need to be able to get jobs to work on, and then you go get candidates. But a lot of staffing companies struggle to get jobs. Maybe their clients aren't hiring, or they can't get clients. So I was lucky enough to walk into a business that had 1 million jobs to work on. Now, the downside to that is I had a lot of competition. So it's almost like if you're, I'm not a deep sea fisherman, but I kind of understand the concept. You throw chum in the water, and all the fish, your sharks or whatever you're trying to attract, come and feed on it. So that was like how I cut my teeth. Pfizer would throw a new job in the water, and me and all my competitors would come rushing, so we would, I would have, 50, 60 other staffing agencies working on the same position. So that was a fun way to cut my teeth, and learned a lot about competition. And if you ever asked your boss for a raise, they would say, yeah, just close the deal. You'll get a commission. So, you kind of learn to eat what you kill, and, try to outdo the other guy. And then I moved westward, spent, 5 years or so in San Francisco. And that opened my eyes to the world of venture-funded tech companies. And I went inside. So I was, instead of being an agency guy, I was in-house. And, recruiting director is kind of the normal term, but in Silicon Valley, they all have to have weird titles. So I was a head of talent. And just kind of running the playbook. My tech companies would raise money, because these tech companies all need VC investors to basically pay for you while you figure out how to make your business get money and profit. But there's this kind of gap, for a few years before that. So
Yeah.
we couldn't use profits to hire because there were none. So we have to rely on VCs basically funding us. So I learned a lot about that world, and as soon as the VCs would write their big checks, millions and millions of dollars, then I was off to the races, hunting down software developers in San Francisco. And then the third leg of my career is where I'm at right now, and I've spent the last 10 years building what we call nearshore companies for
Interesting.
for people in the States. Nearshore is Latin America because it's the same time zone. If you're in Australia, I'd imagine the Philippines, India, Vietnam, similar time zone.
Yes.
And we'd like to think about it as like a developed versus developing countries. Developed countries are looking for labor arbitrage, efficient ways to do things. So just like, say, the U.S. with Mexico, Australia with Indonesia or the Philippines, you've got, young, hungry people to do, and a lot of times they could do a lot of amazing things. But we tend to think about it in terms of like leverage. So if they can do some of the lower leverage things, frees you up to do some of the high leverage things.
Mm-hmm. And in this time frame that you've given me, Brian, and in your starting is saying that you work with Pfizer and these other companies, was there at any particular moment in any of these companies you had the greatest epiphany that you're pulling towards the career that you are now?
Yeah. So I don't think it's quite like this anymore. But, my career kind of started in like that 2004 to 2010, era. And,
okay, yeah.
And what I remember about that era was there was no such thing as remote work. I remember like having to beg my boss one day to like have 2 days I could work from home because I had some sort of medical thing. And I remember him like calling me every hour, like, what are you doing? What are you working on? So, remote work was a different thing back then. And so I was in the office all the time, and it was very business hours. Now, I'm very thankful for that time because you're in this bullpen, you hear everybody, and I just learned so much through osmosis, sitting next to people. And I look at, grads that graduated in 2020, and they went straight, their first day is like this remote onboarding over Zoom. Like, this is crazy. And some people have never left that environment. They've never been in an office, a 5-year career of pure remote work. And I, got to be in the energy of cities and go to lunch with people. But the downside to that was you kind of got to be at your desk from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, regardless of if you have a busy day or not. And when I think back, what was probably most frustrating, and I'm a like pretty naturally motivated person. I've got intrinsic motivation. I'm competitive. I want to win. But, to be honest, like, there are just some days in almost every profession where it's busy, and there are some days where it's not. And the days where it was busy, I'm cranking till 8 o'clock at night, no problem. But the days that it was not busy, I just remember like I'm just kind of stuck at this chair. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got nothing to work on, but I'm stuck in this chair till 5 p.m. And you do that enough, and I kind of had this epiphany, to your question of, well, how do I kind of get out of this? Like, take some more control over my time. And I didn't grow up in a family of entrepreneurs. That was all very new to me, but I think I was like ready to. Every day is a whiteboard. I get to decide what to work on. I get to decide when to work. And the days that are busy, I'm all in. And the days that aren't, I'm playing with my kids and picking them up, and I'm there for them. And I think that was always kind of nudging me towards the role of entrepreneur.
Okay. And going back to that time period, particularly with Pfizer and all those big companies you're talking about there, Brian, how or what type of coffees were around there for you in your part of the woods?
Oh, coffee-wise.
Yeah, coffee-wise.
Yeah. So, we had the kind of boring stuff of Starbucks on every corner. That's what we had. Now I happen to live in Hawaii today, and have lived there 7-8 years now. So I've been very spoiled by Hawaii. Has some excellent coffee. So we can get this amazing coffee grown here from the grocery store and brew it up in our own pots at home, and it's delicious.
So out of 10, how far do you think the coffee industry, from your perspective of, obviously drinking quality-wise and enjoying with your clients or customers or prospects, has improved from your early days?
Yeah, well, so just my enjoyment for coffee, if I understand the question properly.
Yeah, your enjoyment and connecting with others.
Yeah. Well, I will say what I really enjoyed about living in San Francisco was the coffee culture, and you could kind of ask almost anybody out for coffee, and they usually accept, and you get to meet a lot of people. Now, San Francisco has Starbucks, but it also has a lot of these little boutique coffee shops and cool spots. And that was just a blast of getting to, fill my schedule up almost every day with different people, and conversations would go in a lot of different directions. But it was San Francisco, so to be fair, a lot of conversations about tech and the tech industry, and this is before AI, so it was probably more like SaaS, software as a service, was the big topic, and hiring engineers is always a thing, and who's raising money was always a topic of conversation. But connected with a lot of great people there, and just loved the thrill of being able to kind of fill my day bouncing from coffee shop to coffee shop, in San Francisco.
And what was the pivotal, you may have had more than one pivotal moment, getting to where you are now kind of thing, that you were able to take away from your coffee shop type experience with connecting with your clients or customers?
Yeah. Well, I do remember something that was kind of fun in San Francisco was I worked at a tech company that was probably on the 10th floor of a 30-story office tower. And the company wanted to find perks, to attract the workforce. So Silicon Valley, San Francisco is kind of part of the larger Silicon Valley area, which has Google and Facebook, and I was a contractor at Google way back in the day, kind of a year, and everybody kind of does that in that area, the Bay Area. They do their tour, as a contractor, and you're riding your Google bike and going to the different 20 restaurants, and it's all free and smoothies and everything. But they had this massive campus, which was like a college campus, spread out, buildings everywhere. In the office towers of San Francisco, they don't quite have the land to do that. But I remember as they invested some money, they allocated it towards building our own in-house free coffee shop in the office with our own full-time barista and comfy lounge chairs and a foosball table, and that was just a blast. So I would invite candidates up there, colleagues. Hey, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. You ready for a coffee break, right? And we wouldn't have to leave the building. We just go right over to the 10th floor, and that was fantastic. And just met some really incredible people.
Okay. And was there any particular type of coffee that you're drinking in those times?
This is probably back when I was a little younger and had a faster metabolism, so I would drink the mochas, the iced mochas. But now I don't think I can drink that stuff anymore. It's I'm getting too old.
And okay, so particularly with what you're doing now and starting your business and up until this point, what is the most bittersweet moment that you've had with your coffee type of experiences of connecting with someone? It can be a bitter, it can be a joyful experience with your clients or customers. Anything that kind of stands out to you mostly?
Yeah, well, you know what might be interesting for your audience. So I, built, and I'm still doing this, building nearshore companies. So I ended up moving to Argentina for about a year. And if you've never been there, it's world famous for steak, Malbec, old Parisian, European architecture, tree-lined streets, beautiful spot. Now, in America, especially in these cities, you get your coffee and you're off to the next place. And, you've got, if you do go to a sit-down restaurant, even a coffee shop, the waitress or waiter is kind of always like, here's your bill, okay, time to go. In Argentina, there's no pressure. You can just kind of park there with a newspaper or your phone or a colleague and be there for 4 or 5 hours if you want to, and have your café con leche, coffee with milk and maybe a cookie or two, like a little bakery item, and just relax. And that was a beautiful time for me because I went from one extreme to the other, the hustle and the phone stuck to my hand, the whole time I was in San Francisco, to phone down, just relax, slow down, be present, get to know the people there. And that was a revelation for me, and it was a really good thing for my life. I really needed that.
And how valuable would you say that is, that time period, particularly for you, Brian? how valuable would you say it is for, we're talking particularly for the small business, coffee business startups who may be any part of the world, whether it's or the developed world, for you?
Yeah, so if I understood the question right, just like my time in Argentina, how that really shaped me, it was excellent. I had, uh, not only the chance, Argentina, if you haven't been there, it's a big country. It takes up a lot of space. You've got um, the border with Brazil and, this rainforest and falls to the north as you go closer to the equator. And as you go further south, you've got Patagonia and the Ushuaia, the gateway to Antarctica, with penguins and glaciers, and just having that year there where I got to feel it and experience, and just like every place in the world, there's ups and downs. There's economic volatility and geopolitical chaos some days, but then you also have this energetic, flexible, adaptable population that is ready for everything, and it also puts things in perspective. You could get kind of high strung living in a place like San Francisco, where everything has to be immediate. You've got to be on Slack pings and email pings all day long, and then you go to a place like Argentina where there's a long queue for anything, and the rules are kind of vague, and service isn't clear. But it reminds you to kind of chill out a little bit. Like life is short. It's really about your relationships, not this, random arbitrary deadline that you have to get the software product out or something. So, it really put life in perspective for me. So I'm forever thankful for that year. And subsequently, the last 10 years, I've been to the country now 9 times. I've been to Mexico, kind of all over Latin America. So I'm very grateful, that I've been exposed to this part of the world. And it's taken somebody who is kind of high strung and stressed to somebody that I don't really get that freaked out anymore about things. So it allows me to stay calm in chaos, which is, I'm realizing is actually a pretty valuable skill.
Mm. And I believe, Brian, that you've been to Puerto Rico. Is that correct?
I have not been to Puerto Rico.
Oh, I don't know why. I thought it was. Maybe I've got it. Sorry, I've got it mixed up.
That's
sorry,
okay.
Listeners. Costa Rica, is that correct?
Costa Rica. Yeah, I've done business there, but my first time there was special. It's actually where I proposed to my wife, and we celebrated 11 years of marriage this year, and but it all started with the proposal in a rainforest in Costa Rica.
Awesome. And what was the first coffee experience with your fiance or your girlfriend at that time that you can remember, and the experience? Can you remember that, Brian?
I don't know if I can remember the first coffee, but I will certainly tell you that the coffee is quite good in Costa Rica.
Right.
The conditions are just perfect because you've got this, of course, the beaches and the rainforest, but high up above is this cloud forest, which is perfect temperature for growing and cultivating coffee. So we had some terrific coffee there.
Awesome. And does your wife drink similar coffee styles to yourself?
Oh, I think I'm the coffee drinker in the family now. I don't
Oh,
think.
she's okay.
Yeah, she's more of a tea drinker.
Okay, interesting. And you've been to Mexico City, is that correct, Brian?
Correct. Yeah, it's a fantastic, thriving, very green city.
And did you discover any hidden gem type of cafes there?
Uh, what I really remember about Mexico City is, New York is kind of known as like the Alpha City for North America, but believe it or not, Mexico City is actually bigger in population. Um, and it's high above. It's got to be at least a mile. I forgot the exact in meters, maybe 6,000 meters, 7,000 meters. I'm sure someone can correct me, but so you're up high. It's kind of this eternal springtime weather. Um, Green everywhere, parks everywhere, and um, that makes for a really nice quality of life. And you've got people from all over the place, expats from everywhere, Asia, the U.S. They all come to Mexico City, and it's a thriving cosmopolitan expat city.
Mm. With all your experiences, Brian, how valuable do you think it is for particularly my listeners that are coffee lovers, entrepreneurial? A lot of them are particularly in the coffee business industry. For you, would you say, to get away to a developing country?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of developing countries in the world, right? And if you're on your side of the world in Australia, you've got Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, and
Mm-hmm.
but then you've also have seen, the Asian tigers, like Singapore, South Korea, really kind of in like the course of a generation go from developing to developed. And that's really fascinating. Um, and Australia was lucky, I think, to have, a very robust economy for 20, 30 years, without
Yeah.
recessions. But, places like the States, as your population ages, and we see this in Japan, we see this in South Korea now, see this in China, as countries get more mature, their populations age, there's more strain on taxes and services and entitlements. But a lot of the developing countries, you have this young population that's eager for their turn, and it's their country's turn, so you see brand new glittering buildings, hungry workforce, and people are people. It doesn't matter if they're in Australia or Canada or France or the Philippines. They just want a chance. They want an opportunity. So I think it's really nice to travel, period. But go to developed countries, go to developing countries, kind of see the difference, see the energy, and it's a really really awesome opportunity. Highly recommend it.
Now, Brian, what's one unconventional hack that stands out to you, particularly those who are in the early stage, startup stage, maybe even bootstrapping in that can be very valuable for them starting out, particularly in the coffee industry, but it can be in any industry if you're a coffee lover and entrepreneurial, that stands out to you?
Yeah, well, as we talk about the labor arbitrage opportunity, if you're in the coffee industry, of course, there's going to be a lot of hands-on work. You get your hands dirty in that industry. Um, but there's also a lot of office jobs, everything from marketing, positioning, logo design, sales, lead generation, building the software for transactions, all sorts of stuff. And my advice is remember, whether you're in the coffee industry or the software industry or manufacturing or whatever, the world is flat. There's people all over the world that you can access in your talent pool to build your company. And coffee companies have office jobs, front office, back office, just like any other company. So remember that there's a lot of hungry, well-educated labor outside of your country that you could tap into.
And if you could distill any advice to aspiring entrepreneurs into a single bold shot, what is that
sure.
to you that stands out?
I'll share a hard lesson that I had to learn, 10 years ago. You don't have a business until you have a customer. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to get sucked into editing your website at 2:00 in the morning, or, what entity should I establish myself at, and the proper limited liability corporation or structure or whatever. Don't be dragged into that. Get a customer, service that customer, then you can worry about all the other stuff.
And in saying that, Brian, in your experiences with being an entrepreneur and working with others, when would you say the perfect time to pivot?
The perfect time to be an entrepreneur? Did I hear that correct?
Well, not necessarily perfect, but when is the road signs or roadblocks?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That you would, pivot your operations, not necessarily the whole industry, but in general.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll talk about. I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone, but
yeah,
I think some of the signals that people might recognize, for that road are you want to control your own destiny. And in some cases you might take a pay cut. In many cases you might take a pay cut. And I think recognizing that if you plan to be an entrepreneur for a long time, it might be multiple businesses over that period of time. But it's all compounding. And I don't think people quite recognize that all the learning is being compounded for you, not for someone else, right? You're not, and I mean this like in the nicest way, like you're not funding someone else's retirement with your labor. You're funding your own retirement with your own labor, and it's all compounding. So if you can get through those first couple ugly years, it's a beautiful place to be for the rest of your life.
And how important for our coffee-loving entrepreneurs do you think it is to leverage your time and keep focus?
Yeah, well, I think when you look at leverage is a really key word, and I'm glad you said that, because there's really like a labor arbitrage and leverage that you could look at. I think recognizing that in the first year, you're probably going to have to do everything. But once you just get a little bit of traction, being able to figure out what you're exceptional at, and then what's something you can outsource, what's something you can get leverage for, and then you start to realize like, hey, for $5 or $8, I can find people to do a lot of these things. Certainly my time is worth more than that. So once you've kind of figured out the leverage angle, you can make leaps and bounds acceleration with your business.
And Brian, as we get closer to the end, how important are standards, not just for yourself, but for those who you may be directly employing or an agency you may be using as an entrepreneur or an established small business, having standards? How do you look at that? And
I think you're absolutely correct. And for entrepreneurs, I think we can kind of like figure stuff out as we go, no worries, right? But for those that are on your team, they often, no one wants a micromanager, right? Like I've never seen somebody say, I really want to be micromanaged. So the way around that is outcomes, focus on outcomes, but flush out those outcomes with a clear standard. And you either reach the standard or you don't. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, like there's less opinion about how someone did and more objectivity, black and white. Did they exceed the standard, reach the standard, or miss the standard? And then it's either a training issue or a performance issue.
Okay. And how valuable do you think it is in your type of business for an entrepreneur or probably an established business even to look at the type of industry that you do and your vision and that?
Yeah. Well, I think having a shared vision is extremely important, as you bring in team members, leaders, investors, whether it's a coffee business or not, you want to have a shared, clear shared vision. And that will, there's this, I think, quote of like, two people are they're like doing some work on a boat, and you ask, the first worker, what are you doing? Oh, I'm, hammering this nail into this, piece of lumber. And you ask the second person, I'm building a ship that's going to sail the world, So, what you want to do is make sure your team and everybody else is thinking like the second person, they know what they're doing, why they're doing it, the impact, the vision. It can make a world of difference.
Okay, and I can see Nearshore Café podcast. Tell us a little bit about how did you come about putting that together, and why the cafe type of thing, so our listeners can get plugged in and have a look at what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. The website is simply nearshorcafepodcast.com.
Yep.
We're about 70 episodes in. Just kicked off season 4. And this is the place where we bring people that are either in the States working with Latin America or really interesting people in Latin America They might be investors, they might be entrepreneurs, engineers, builders, CEOs. And we call it the Café because cafes are meant to be relaxed, conversational. So although we're usually doing this over video because people are in different parts of the world, there's still a cafe conversational element to it.
And with your experience with your podcast, how valuable do you think for a small business, coffee business, entrepreneurial, to consider having a look at a podcast for their content creation and getting their word out and their voice out there?
Yeah, well, I think what's important to recognize is podcasts are great, but a tiny, tiny percent of podcasts make it past 20 episodes. So I'd suggest if you're going to do it, plan for 100 episodes. And if you don't want to commit to 100, don't do it. You know, I think you want to, because then it gets you into a mode of how do I make a great show for my audience? How do I help them? How do I kind of grow my brand, my visibility without stressing over downloads and views and listens, you know, every episode, right? So you can have a broader, longer term strategy instead of, you know, only my mother listens to the episode, you know, and we're on the 8th one, and then you're more likely to throw the towel in, and it was just kind of a waste of time. So I do think it can have huge benefits, with the caveat is be committed to doing 100 episodes, and then I think it's going to be hugely beneficial.
Now, Ryan, I notice looking at different, you know, groups, whether it's on Facebook or wherever, particularly those podcasting entrepreneurs, they're starting out and they think it's all about monetizing.
Yeah.
How would you address that?
Yeah.
And focusing on that?
Yeah, we haven't thought about that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're chasing the wrong things, you know, if you're doing that. And honestly, I mean, there's got to be millions of podcasts out there now. Like, you know, it's kind of like wealth distribution in the States, you know, like 1% of people control 50% or more of the wealth. You know, it's same thing with the podcast. Like 1% of the podcast make 80% of the money, you know. So I wish everyone the best that they can get in that top 1%. But it's, you know, like being a 5th grade basketball player and thinking you're going to play in the NBA, you know, someday. The odds are so small and minuscule. So don't bet your house that you're gonna be a millionaire podcaster.
Awesome. So, Brian, now that we get close to finishing up, please give the listeners where they can find you, your business, and get connected with. How's the best way to go about that?
Sure, thank you. My name is Brian Samson, Samson, and you can check our website out for Plugg Technologies, Plugg.tech, TECH. And that website has all the information about nearshoring and Latin America, and it's easy to connect with me from that website as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today, Brian. It's been great to have you, and hopefully our listeners will take some valuable lessons and some nuggets away. And make sure that you go over to Nearshore podcast and listen in to what Brian has got to share. it could be some great value there for you. And until next time, listeners, we'll catch us all later, and bye for now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, it's really sweet. Your ears too were quite the treat. Sipping knowledge in every beat, we hope you found it hard to retreat. Community bonds we hold so tight, in the dark roast or morning light, gathering stories brave and bold, every listener pure gold. Thank you from the host, Coffee, the intimate treat. In the dark roast or morning light, gathering stories brave and bold, every listener pure gold. Thank you from the host, Coffee, the ultimate treat.